All right. Thank you so much for joining us for Empowering Pastors today. Thank you guys for logging in. If you could go ahead and share this on Facebook or with a friend. I know the email went out as well. I know Pastor Spencer, Dr. Spencer would greatly appreciate it. I believe he'll be looking for homework. If you did not do your homework, you can send it to pastorspencer@gmail.com through PayPal. I think he also accepts Cash App, Facebook message, really, however you can get it to him. I'm sure he'd be excited. But thank you so much for being on. We have a treat today. We have Henry Fukesman, who's a local business owner and been a man of God since he was probably born. But we absolutely love him, and he's going to come up and share with us today. So make sure you stick with us. If you need the notes at the end, go ahead and comment, and we'll make sure we can email them to you. So go ahead and put your hands together for Henry Fukesman.
Wow, I didn't pay you guys to be so nice to me.
We like you.
You like me, huh? Okay, thank you, Chad. At least one person does. Well, it's good to be here with you guys. I should have, I meant to write Pastor Spencer, tell him, do not tell anybody that I'm coming. As you can see, it's very light here. They heard that I was coming. So anyway, but I am somewhat excited about what I want to share with you guys today. It will probably, if I was sharing at a church, it might not get me invited back. But I think it's, because it's not, you know, sexy. We're not going to be talking about the seventh heaven or the third angel or anything like that. But I think it's really interesting. Pastor Mike and I have been trying to get together. It's, I don't know, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months for me to share what he's asked me to share on. And he's asked me to share, I thought it was interesting, on ethics, and it's like I said, it's been quite a while. But it's interesting on God's timing. I'm guessing from what I could tell, most of you were here Sunday for church, and do you guys remember what he talked about?
Watchman.
Who was the first one? You said it? Watchman? Watchman, that's right. And there is, and the watchman has different qualities, The quality that he talked about, or the characteristic of the watchman that he talked about on Sunday morning was about somebody that, maybe could we say he's evangelistic, he is about telling other people about Jesus. But a watchman has many times different responsibilities, right? When you hear the sirens and some of the things that he talked about that annoyed us, annoyed some of us, they're to warn us, right? That's what a watchman does. He warns people. So anyway, so what I want to share with you, what he asked me to share quite a while ago, is about ethics and integrity. It's not a very sexy subject, is it? I mean, it's not, I mean, it doesn't really do anything for you, does it? Thanks for being honest. Your husband, you know, he's kind of like that. That's because I think he likes me better than you do. But anyway, but I think it's something that is dramatically needed. We need to understand what it means. Hopefully you have a handout. If you don't, Cody could get one to you, or he could email one to you, or I can. But so integrity, ethics, and I don't know how long it's been, but Pastor Spencer did a teaching on ethics a long time ago, and it has something to do with the title was Super Bosses. Just for curiosity, what do you guys do with the handouts every week that he gives out or somebody gives out? Can somebody just tell me? Pardon?
Save them.
Anyone else?
Just keep them in my notebook.
In your notebook? Yeah, I personally save them on my hard drive. It's always nice to go back and relearn. Human nature learns by repetition. Thank you, Mike. I think it's nice. So I went back through some of his notes on ethics, But anyway, so ethics is principles of conduct governing an individual or a group of people. So it's about ethics, it's about conduct. Integrity comes from the Latin word, and it means wholeness, entireness, and completeness. When the Bible maybe doesn't use the word integrity or ethics, but it does talk a lot about righteousness. It does talk a lot about completeness and wholeness and entireness. That's what righteousness is about. There's a new book out, or I don't know how long it's been out, but it's The Day America Told the Truth. And it's based on like an opinion survey type of a book, where these guys went out and they just started asking people different questions and getting answers. The Day America Told the Truth. Well, it reveals an alarming crisis in integrity in America. And so one of the things that I'm hoping to, as I said, it's not very cool or sexy, but one of the things that I want to, I don't know if the right word is to convince you that America, we have a problem with integrity. There's a problem with ethics in our country. So in this book, it was very alarming, the problem of integrity in America. Only 13% of Americans see that all 10 commandments is binding on us today. I mean, even when I read some of this stuff, it was kind of shocking to me. Could you imagine 13% don't see the, it's only 13% that see the commandments as an absolute. That means 87% of people do not. 91% of people lie regularly at home and at work. One of the questions that was asked, is, whom have you regularly lied to? 86% said to parents, and that doesn't mean just little kids to, you know, the mama and the papa. It means people like you and I that have, if we still have a parent that's alive, that we lie to parents. 75% said that they lie to friends.
Wow.
That's exactly what I was saying. Wow. 1/3 of AIDS carriers admit to not having told their lovers. Most workers admit to goofing off for an average of 7 hours, almost one whole day per week. Now, to me, being a businessman, somebody that employs people, it is absolutely crazy. And my kids call me old school, but I think it's good school. It's great school. And I'm not old. It's just a number. But I remember when we lived in Jamestown, New York, I went to work for a company called Dahlstrom. I even tell you the name, Dahlstrom Manufacturing. And I was just a sales guy, had never sold before, but I became a sales manager, whatever that meant. And it was a union shop, and I became very friendly with the people in the shop. It was a massive building, 600,000 square feet. How many square feet is this building here? Do you know? 30,000. So think about 600,000 square foot facility, 20 times bigger than this facility here, and I think this facility is huge. So anyway, this manufacturer, Dahlstrom, and the reason I'd go out in the shop and talk to the people working on the, I got to stop moving. So I just go up and down, and I still get a little nervous. But anyway, I'd go out there because they would be building the stuff that I was selling. And so many times I'd go out there and to see like where they were in the process, and there was quality issues. One of my clients was Kodak, actually, in Rochester. And knowing that I'm not the brightest bulb in the box, I realized very quickly that that company wasn't going to last. They weren't going to stay alive. And the reason is because, you know, the survey says here that on an average, It's almost a whole day that a company loses. This company that I work for, they were maybe getting 6 hours out of 8 in production. So that means that prices had to go up dramatically to make up for the loss of production. So eventually, after a while, I knew that this company, as much as I didn't want it, and I didn't want to say it and I didn't say it to anybody, I kind of said it to myself. I said, this company is just not going to make it. They're not going to last. And sure enough, I think about 3 years later, they went under. 600,000 square foot facility, beautiful brick building, 3 or 4 stories high, huge. And boom, gone. As a matter of fact, I became very friendly with the union guys out in the shop, and with one guy especially, he was part of the union hierarchy or whatever, and I don't remember his name. But I would say to him, I said, dude, don't you understand what you guys are doing? What you're doing is you're cutting your own throats. You're going to be out of business. You're going to be out of work. You need to be working harder, not less. Oh yeah, they don't do anything to us. The management was actually afraid of the workers. So, you know, the tail was wagging the dog versus the dog wagging the tail. So most workers, they do admit to goofing off for an average of 7 hours, almost 1 whole day per week. I hope and trust that that cannot be said about us as Christians. We could have a tremendous testimony just by being a great worker, you know. So I am a little bit old school. One of my kids says, you know, because I'm at that retirement age. I know I'm shocking most of you females. You think I'm 39, but I'm really not. I did sign up for Social Security recently, so that tells you potentially what my age is. Approximately. Thanks, Mike. That's why Mike came here to help me out today. But anyway, one of the things as I talk about retirement, whatever that means, one of my kids that takes after me, the good-looking daughter that I have, she says, Dad, you old immigrants, you guys don't know how to do anything except work hard. You're never going to retire. I'm hoping to prove her wrong. But anyway, in my career, most of you are this handsome young guy here. He might remember. Most of you don't even know what a gas station is. Well, back in my day, we remember what a gas station was. And that's kind of where I started I'm in the energy business. I started in what you guys call convenience stores. I was an assistant manager, trainee. And the only thing that I know how to do, I didn't have a college education because a woman kept chasing me and I got married. I was only 20 years old. You know, I mean, she just wouldn't stay away from me. And so I had to marry her, you know. I chased her. She chased me and chased me until I caught her. But anyway, so I had to go to work right away. We were going to wait 2 years to have a first child. We waited 9 months and 4 days, and all the old people were counting on the calendar that we didn't misbehave, you know. And we didn't misbehave. I want you to know for whatever here. But anyway, the only thing that I know how to do, because I didn't have a lot of skills at 20 and 21, was just to work hard and outwork anybody else that I knew. And so I went from an assistant manager trainee to an assistant manager, then to I think I even became a troubleshooter before I became a manager trainee. And they sent me all over the state to help. And then I became a manager trainee and a manager, and eventually I became a supervisor over 10 locations from Elmira to Mount Morris. Had a company car. My kids had the station wagon, and what they call quick fills today, he remembers, they were called rotaries back in my day. Mike remembers, except you're not that old like this handsome guy and I. But anyway, they called them rotaries, and my biggest competition was Hess. And I brainwashed my kids when we would drive by a Hess station, they'd go, Hess is a mess. Hess is a mess. That's why I love my boys, you know, they're awesome. But anyway, so just working hard, being different than the next guy gets you promoted. And eventually I wound up running that company, moving to Jamestown, New York, and we ran, it's called United Refining Company of Pennsylvania. So I went from zero to hero. And then I did go back to hero, you know, just God has his ways. But anyway, so just by working hard, having a different philosophy that's what's out there in the world, we could be tremendous testimonies. Half of the people that was surveyed, they admitted that regularly they called in sick when they were perfectly well. You know, it's kind of, I was thinking about it also from a different perspective that, you know, one of the things that we believe a lot in this church is in Proverbs 18:21, where it says, death and life is in the power of the tongue, right? So why would I ever call in sick? I mean, you almost have to lie, like, I can't come to work today because my dog ran away or something. I mean, I would never want to say that I'm sick, you know, if I'm not sick. Why would you want to bring it upon yourself? I go to home group on Tuesday nights with some other friends, and I've been sharing on Proverbs 18:21, you know, death and life is in the power of the tongue, about what we say. Could you imagine the people that that maybe if they don't even swear a lot, but if they use the word damn a lot? Where does damn come from? It comes from damnation. Why would you want to be damning yourself, damning your family, your health, your finances, or other people? You know, and it was interesting in our home group, there's a lady, and so she said to me, well, Henry, I say damn a lot. Like, you know, when somebody says something, I'll go, damn. I said, well, why would you want to do that? Why don't you say, wow, cool? You know, be like the young people, say cool, because everybody says cool, right? Because it's important what we say. You know, words are very, very powerful. Our actions and our words are very, very powerful. So don't call in sick if you're not sick, please. The survey also in this book, it posed the question, which the question was, what are you willing to do for $10 million? 25% said that they would be willing to abandon their families. Wow. Yeah, for $10 million, 25% would abandon their families. 23% would become, if you want to get the book, I told you what it is, you're welcome to get the book. It was shocking to me also, just like you're being shocked. 23, but this is where our culture is today. And I'll give you a couple of other points here as we go along. 23% said that they would become a prostitute for a week for $10 million. One of the most shocking, one of the most shocking things was 7% would kill a stranger. Think of it. In a gathering of 100 Americans, there are 7 who would consider killing you if the price was right. Yep. In 1,000, that means there are 70.
A little scary. Yeah.
It is a little scary. You know, I gotta confess, when I first started coming around here to his tabernacle back, I think it was still in the old building, and I don't know if I made fun or not. I know other people that I would never do that, but I thought it was very interesting that, you know, Pastor might be there and he'd have the guys on the right and the left, you know, the security guys. I'm going like, what the heck is up with these guys? So I asked my son Josh. He goes, well, they're security. I said, security in church? Come on, man, you got to be kidding me. You know, we have God on our side. But today, nowadays, you're not safe hardly anywhere, right? I mean, whether it's church, a guy back in Colorado a few years back, and other places, guy with a gun, boom, 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 took out there was a bunch of people that he took out. So as shocking as this is, I mean, this is reality. This is where America is today. Even casual observers, they see the demise of integrity in the whole range of our culture today. You know, some of you I know are very young, but maybe you don't remember there was this thing called Watergate. There's Iran Gate, Savings Gate, even Pearly Gates, where we've seen where you know, pastors have done things that they shouldn't be doing. You know, you can't hardly listen to the news where there's much has been chronicled about the sexual affairs of prominent senators, congressmen, perjuring themselves, lying. You know, I am a little bit or a lot political. I'm trying to leave that aside a little bit, but you can't, I don't know if you've noticed, but politicians for the last 10 plus years, they've changed the English language. I don't know if you feel that way. I certainly do. They don't use the word lie anymore. Oh, he or she misspoke. No, they lied. They didn't misspeak. They just plain outright lied. And the cover-ups and the things that they try to say, well, you know, so-and-so, because he's a powerful man, you know, powerful men have to do these kind of things. Well, they don't. It's a bunch of bunk, you know. The art of, as I said, I can't hardly handle the news anymore, because the art of embellishment of even academic records. It was interesting, even though I'm somewhat boycotting football, for those of you that are football fans, but I was noticing that a guy was a coach, I think, for Notre Dame. He had lied about his academic records, and then he eventually got fired. And he was on, I was clicking, and I stopped at a football game, and he was behind the coach. I don't know what team it was now, but the same guy that lied about his academic records is still in the business. You know, it's amazing. I don't. Those of you that follow, you know, recently there's been. I'm not telling you where I'm at on what side or whatever, but the whole Judge Kavanaugh thing, and one of the senators that was vehemently opposing him. I won't tell you that it was Senator Blumenthal from Connecticut. I will not tell you that. He is one of the guys that been lying for years about his war record. He said that he was in Vietnam or whatever. The guy's just a plain, oh no, I'm sorry. He misspoke. He misspoke. He really wasn't lying. He was misspeaking, you know. Try misspeaking, kids misspeaking to their parents, see how far there it gets. It's not misspeaking, it's lying. Even presidents have lied about some of their records. The truth is that American culture is in big trouble. The colossal slide of integrity, especially masculine ethics, has grim spiritual, domestic, and political implications which threaten the very survival of life as we know it. If you don't have truth, if you don't have integrity, what do you have? You know, I'd rather that somebody would say, you know, I could trust Henry, versus saying that I'm very handsome, which I am, obviously, right? Clearly. I would rather somebody say that they trust me more than anything else. Funny little story. One of my biggest clients is the guy that the people that make Pepsi for most of New York State in Syracuse, New York, and Cicero, New York. He's no longer there, the general manager. He left. He was a gentleman from Alabama with a very deep, you know, Southern accent, and so he became actually my first customer when I went out on my own. But this one day we were talking, and he said to me, he goes, "Henry, I do business with you not because you're so smart, but because you're the most sincere man that I know." So I think that was a backhand compliment, like you're a dummy, but I'm still going to do business with you because you're very sincere, you know? So I don't mind being a dummy as long as he is my customer. But, you know, to me, that meant more than anything else that this man trusted me, that he knew that if I put some kind of a contract in front of him, it was okay for him to sign. And it's amazing that some of the people that I do business with, the guy that took his place has become my friend, and I got to witness to this guy, and I think he's saved. So when I go to Syracuse, you know, to get him to sign a contract or just to hang out with him because he likes hanging out, he likes to talking about leadership. He's a John Maxwell guy. It's amazing. He goes, like, if I need something for him to sign, he goes, okay, what you know, what do you want to, where you want me to sign? What is it? Now, this guy probably spends $500,000 in electricity and gas on a monthly basis, not yearly, monthly. He's the man, and his name is Mike. Lord bless Mike. And so, you know, he goes, okay, where do I sign, Henry? Right there. Okay, is this good for me, Henry? He doesn't read it. It's probably 10 pages of contract. Doesn't read. Is this good for me? Yeah, Mike, it's good for you. Okay, let's go. Let's go have lunch now and talk about John Maxwell, or you know what, you know, or something else. I love those relationships that God has given me, but it's because of what God has made me. So some of you, you've been wowing a lot. Maybe we could ask, but is this really true for us real Christians? Because, real Christians are not like this. And it's the book that I was telling you about, Sherman and Hendricks, the authors, in their book, Keeping Your Ethical Edge Sharp, answered yes. Sadly, but yes. The general ethical conduct of Christians varies only slightly from non-Christians. Sadly, Christians are almost as likely as non-Christians to commit phone theft, exaggerate a product, tell people what they want to hear, selectively obey the laws, bribe to obtain a building permit. That's just the way business is done, people say. Ignore construction specs, illegally copy a computer program, steal time, and falsify their income tax returns, commit plagiarism, just ask teachers. As we did a study on this, there's many reasons that are cited for where the culture is today. But I'd like to give you maybe one word, and that's what I want to kind of focus in on here for the next few seconds. And that word is judgment. Do we really believe in judgment anymore? Now, my Bible, I brought it with me. I call it Life's Manual. It does talk about judgment. But I think what happens to us, we believe it, but we really don't. Because if we did, we might not even have to talk about ethics or integrity. We would live and talk differently. One of the problems is that we haven't had any Ananias and Sapphira experiences, right? And I think all of you know the story about Ananias and Sapphira. We haven't had those. And I think many times what happens, we've seen, whether it's family, friends, pastors, politicians and pastors, leaders, getting away with, and you could fill in the blank. You could fill in anything that you want, lying, cheating, stealing, being adulterers, or whatever else. And so one of the questions that I ask myself and I ask you is, do you fear God? I remember talking with some business guys, and I don't think it was necessarily talking about business that morning, but we brought up about raising kids, and I asked the question about, do your kids fear you? And it was interesting that everybody, well, I don't want my kids to fear me, I want them to respect me. Well, a 1-year-old, 2-year-old, they don't know much of a difference. You can't rationalize. I mean, it drives me nuts as old school, I guess, when I see parents rationalizing with a 2-year-old. Now, Johnny, do you know that the Pythagorean theorem says that a squared plus b squared equals c squared? Johnny doesn't even know that 1 + 1 = 2, and we're trying to rationalize with him that it's 10 o'clock at night and he should really be sleeping because rest is good for him, right? Trying to rationalize. I think, I'm guessing, we'll just go over it real quick. The story of Ananias and Sapphira, they said that they were selling, it's in Acts chapter 5, verse 3 and 4. They were selling the land and they were going to bring all the money back to the apostles. So Ananias, the husband, he sells, gets the money, goes to the apostles, and he says, here's all the money that I got from my land. But it wasn't the truth, was it? And what did Peter say to him? He says, hey, you didn't lie to me. You're lying to God. You're lying to the Holy Spirit. And bam, his life was taken from him. Then his wife did the same thing, and she was taken out. And I'm wondering, because we haven't seen anything like this. Since I am the most mature guy here, and I've been a Christian. Actually, this is a wonderful year, 2018. It's 50 years that I've been saved. I got saved in 1968.
Yeah, yeah.
It was in 1968, whether you guys believe it or not. There was. Go easy on. But anyway, so for 50 years I've been saving the Lord and serving the Lord. I haven't seen any Ananias, Sapphira type of experiences. And, you know, sometimes very honestly, I said, man, I'd rather that it happened to Brittany, you know, than me, you know, little Ananias and Sapphira experience. But I believe that that's one of the issues is that, you know, we haven't seen that. We've seen people get away with so much so that there is very little fear. You know, we love, in the same chapter, we love verse 12 where it says, and through the hands of the apostles, many signs and wonders were done among the people. But we very seldom read the verse before. Here's the answer. The verse before, verse 11 says, so great fear came upon all the church and upon all who heard these things. I know that personally for me, one of the things, is many things, but one of the main things in my life that has kept me on the straight and narrow, I have a fear. I really am afraid of going to hell. And I mean, I'm not shaking. I'm not afraid that God, you know, is just waiting. He's looking over the balcony of heaven, just waiting for Henry to screw up to send him to hell. That's not what I'm saying. But I do have a healthy fear. You know, we just told you a little bit about, you know, parents and raising kids. My kids, when they were growing up, they feared me, but they still like me to this day, and I hardly pay them anything. You know, they even like going on vacations with me. I don't understand that, Jay, but Josh likes going on vacations with me. Yeah, okay. You weren't supposed to say that. And I don't pay for everything. But, you know, so they got their buns warmed up when they needed it, and there was very little rationalizing going on because they, you know, people don't understand. Even older kids do not understand. You can't rationalize with them. And so one of the things I know that I've asked God, because I know myself to some degree, is that I would have a healthy fear. I don't want to get to the end and not make it. Could you imagine that? You know, it's even though it's football season, could you imagine getting to the goal line and not being able to get a touchdown? When is the last time fear came upon you? As I said, you know, we see families, friends, pastors, politicians, pastors, leaders getting away with it. And so we go, well, you know, God will forgive me. It's okay. I don't know about you, but I am not waiting for an Ananias Sapphira experience in my own life. Because we don't see many times judgment coming immediately. We just think it's not going to happen. A very sad situation. When I started my business many years ago, it was just me. And then I hired my first sales guy. This first sales guy, he had been in a Teen Challenge Rehab Center for 1 year. He had 4 little kids. His wife and 4 kids were living in a bedroom that one of our dear friends, one of my dear friends from Elim, gave up their master bedroom so that the wife and kids could have some place to live. So he was gone for a year. He came back, and through some circumstances that God put together, I wound up hiring him as a salesman. His cars were, as my Ukrainian mother-in-law used to say, jalopies. They were worse than jalopies, if you know what a jalopy is, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. They were worse than jalopies. I could hear him coming down the road because of his rotors, the brakes squeaking. And so I hired him, and off we went, and he started doing phenomenal. God started blessing him tremendously. A lot more than the boss man was making. And within a very short period of time, about a year, year and a half, and he worked, wouldn't take that away from him, he was making 6 figures. He was making twice as much as the boss man was. Doing great. He went from jalopies to nice vehicles. He went from living in a trailer to a colonial house while the boss was living in a 750 square foot apartment. but it was all good. And then little by little, I hate telling you that I might have been a little bit naive when I started the company, but I was a little naive, you know, hey, we're going to have a Christian company. We're all going to be Christians and we're going to take on the world. We're going to make bazillions. And we're going to start with prayer. Every morning we start with prayer. Woo, 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 rah, 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 you know, go Jesus. So in the beginning, while he was going from nothing to making over 100 grand a year, he'd be on time. You know, we'd start at 8 o'clock and because, you know, I'm old school. If it says 8 o'clock, you need to be there actually at 7:50. And so anyway, after a while, because he was doing so well, he'd show up maybe 8:15. So, you know, I'd be doing one of these waiting for him so we could have prayer. And then it became 8:20 and then 8:30. And so I'd say, hey, you know, can you be here on time? Because, you know, I'm always praying. You know, we'd like to get going with prayer here. Yeah, okay, I'll do my best. And eventually, you know, it was up to 9 o'clock. So we changed starting time from prayer from 8 to 8:30, then 9 o'clock. Then eventually he came to me and he says, you know, I really don't want to come here unless I really have to. I'm just going to be on my own. And it was interesting during this about a 2 or 3 year period, he had backslid. I can't remember, maybe 2 or 3 times where he would just go off the deep end and start drinking again and doing drugs. And 2 or 3 days later, he would show up and he'd go ask for his job back. And he'd go, oh, Henry, I need, you know, an old guy, a mature guy like you in my life, you know, and I need your help. Okay, you could have your job back. Let's go. Then, you know, 6 months later, off the wagon again. But eventually, he's very cockily, is that a word? Being cocky? Is that a word? Anyway, I just made it up, so it's got to be a word. You know, my opinion counts. Anyway, he said, listen, I'll just show up when I want to because, you know, I'm making lots of money, and I'll just show up when I want to. I said, well, I'm not sure that that's what we really want in our company. Why don't you give me a couple of days and we'll talk. So I just, a couple of days went by, and I said, Cody, this is not the way I want to run things. I need you to be here. You know, I could be a little flexible, but I need you to be here like everybody else. He said, okay. Didn't show up on time. And he did a no-no. He eventually went to work. We're a broker of energy. He went directly to work for one of the suppliers, even though he had a non-compete. And went to work for them. And sued me for not paying him commissions for working for somebody else. So I had to hire a lawyer, which was all new to me. And I wound up, I guess I lost because I had to pay him $80,000 worth of commissions while he was taking all my business. But you know what? God gave me grace. And I never wished anything bad upon him and his family. I actually felt bad because he kept falling off the wagon. And eventually, he wound up getting fired from the people that he went to work for. Then he went to somebody else and he got fired from there. And eventually, within, I bet it was a year and a half, he lost his wife, lost 4 beautiful kids, lost his house, lost his cars, and now he was living in an apartment above some storefront or something like that. So sometimes, you know, punishment does come to us. You know, maybe it takes a while, but it will. And I think we're on page 5, Galatians 6:7 says, "Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever a man soweth, that he will also reap." And we all love that part of that verse, you know, whatever a man sows, that he will also reap, because, you know, we tend to equate it to money a lot. You know, well, I'm going to give $1 and hopefully I get 10 back. You know, I'm going to give 10 and hopefully I get 100 back. But it also talks about our actions. Whatever a man sows in his actions, it's going to come back to him. And, you know, it's interesting that God says, you know, through the Apostle Paul, hey, talking to us, hey, don't be deceived. And God says, listen, I'm not mocked. God is not mocked. It will catch up to you. what's the world says? What goes around? It does, doesn't it? There's other examples that I could give you. I love what the Amplified Bible says. It says, do not be deceived. God is not mocked. He will not allow himself to be ridiculed, nor treated with contempt, nor allow his precepts to be scornful set aside. For whatever a man sows, this, and this only is what he will reap. Romans 2:4 in the Amplified. Or do you have no regard for the wealth of his kindness and tolerance? The reason, we don't get wiped out sometimes is strictly because of God's kindness and tolerance and patience towards us.
Yeah.
If I was God, Henry would have been wiped out a long time ago. And I know Christians, many times they say that, or pastors say that, but I'm telling you, Mike is with me. So the two of us would have been wiped out. The rest of you would have been saved. It would have been all right. But I just know myself. I know the things that I've done and have not done. God is not mocked. It's his kindness, it's his tolerance and patience. Are you actually unaware or ignorant of the fact that God's kindness leads you to repentance?
Yeah.
That is to change your inner self, your old way of thinking, seek his purpose for your life. That's why we're still here. It says that what God's goodness brings man to repentance. Mm-hmm. That's what it's about. God loves us that much that he's willing to wait for us. But he's not going to be mocked forever. So what is biblical integrity? Biblical integrity has the root of the ideas we talked about in the very beginning of completeness, that a person of integrity is whole. Everything about his life, you could point to that person is a man or woman of integrity. They do things the right way. Integrity characterizes the entire person, not just part of him. He's righteous and honest through and through. I love Psalm 15. It says, it celebrates the completeness of the man of integrity. Lord, who may dwell in your sanctuary? Who may live on your holy hill? He whose walk is blameless and who does what is righteous, who speaks the truth from his heart and has no slander on his tongue, who does his neighbor no wrong and casts no slur on his fellow man, who despises a vile man, but honors those who fear the Lord, who keeps his oath, even when it hurts, who lends money without usury and does not accept a bribe against the innocent. He who does these things will never be shaken. I know at times people have said to me, well, Henry, I know you're a good guy, you're a Christian guy, and so you wouldn't steer me in the wrong direction or whatever. True, but I'm telling you, I am more fearful of God than I am of you and doing something wrong to you, because it will come back. And so I'd rather lose money or do whatever I have to, but I'd rather make sure that my relationship with God is whole. I remember I wasn't very smart, a little smarter now, but when I started my business, an attorney gave me bad information. Maybe I misheard it, but he was, I didn't know whether it should be a C Corp or a Sub S. There's different types of corporations. So the way he made it sound like I should be a C Corp. So I became a C Corp. And we were living in the Rochester area and trying to support 3 houses. We had bought an apartment or a condo up there. Had one in Florida and had a house here that my wife was in love with, even though we would never stay there, but she loved the house. And so, once in a while I try to be a nice guy, which is not very often, but I do work on that. I'm still working on it. So don't laugh at me, Jay. But anyway, so finances were very, very difficult. And she's a spoiled woman, so she didn't understand any of that. The finances were very difficult. She still doesn't understand that. Does it say sugar daddy on my back somewhere? I can't see it,
Take your jacket off.
Take my jacket off. Anyway, so I became a C Corp, and must have been the second year or the third year. I go get my taxes done, and my CPA says, you owe $5,000. And I didn't do the very best in the beginning of our lives with money. As I told you, my wife chased me. So, we had our first child 9 months and 4 days later. And so money was always a challenge for us. She never worked, sugar daddy, spoiled. It's a good thing she's not here. Now, if anybody says any of this stuff, I am going to lie and not admit to it. Just kidding. Just kidding. It's a good thing that she's not listening, is she, Cody?
She hasn't commented.
No. But anyway, the CPA says, Henry, you owe $5,000. I said, I'm not making any money. What are you talking about? I was thinking that he was just a bad CPA. Well, no, the truth was because being a C Corp, and I don't understand all that still. I still don't understand it as well as maybe somebody like Jay, who has a good accounting brain. Anyway, I owed $5,000. So he said to me, he says, you should, why did you become a C Corp? I said, well, that's what the attorney kind of led me to do. He says, well, that was wrong. You should have been a sub S. And then you win all this money. He says, why don't I write a letter and saying that you really didn't kind of know? And I said, well, listen, man, I did know what I was sort of doing. I can't lie. He goes, well, no, it's not lying. It's, well, we're just going to, use words. I said, Tom, we can't twist words just for the sake of twisting words. He says, well, where are you going to get the $5,000 from? I know your financial situation. Back then, I was a poor sugar daddy. Today, I'm a little bit better than a poor sugar daddy. But anyway, so he says, well, look, I know your financial situation. Go home, talk to your wife. I said, she doesn't know anything about this. Just go home and call me tomorrow. So I called him the next day and said, hey, no, don't write the letter. Don't do anything. We'll figure it out, and I will come up with the $5,000. And God provided, and we did. I don't remember if I had to pay all of it at once, but God did provide. It's interesting, the first few years when I was supporting those 3 properties, and trying to get the business off the ground, our business is very difficult because you could sell something today, but you might not see your money for 75 days later. So it's very difficult from a cash flow purposes. It's not like, being in the tire business, you get your money just like that and you make twice as much, Anyway, so it was difficult, but you know what? God honors those that do what he says that to do. He really does. And if we just submit to that, I believe that we will be okay. We never starved. And, God just works in so many beautiful ways. It was amazing. So for those first 2, 3, 4 years, the 2 boys lived here. My daughter lived in DC. But whenever we get together, especially with the boys here, usually who pays, right? Dad, right? Well, for the 2 or 3 years that it was a struggle financially, the moment we'd go out to eat and the check came, they'd fight for the check. This was great payback. I love payback. But it was interesting for those 3 years, I don't think I ever paid one restaurant bill. After that, I've paid plenty of restaurant bills. But it was interesting the way God worked in our lives. Never missed a mortgage payment on the 3 properties. It was, God does provide. Proverbs 12:22, talking about lying. The Lord detests lying lips, but he delights in men who are truthful. Proverbs 20:10, God says, differing weights and differing measures, the Lord detests them both. And one of the things that I think is so important to us today about keeping our word, Proverbs 20 verse 6, many a man claims to unfailing love, but a faithful man who can find? Keeping your word is so, it's everything. Because you could do one good thing, but what do they say? Maybe 10 people will know about it. You do one bad thing, how many people will know about it? All of them, 200, they say this, the statistics say. You know, it's even been interesting. I trust you guys don't mind, and Cody, you don't mind. You could, Pastor Spencer could spank me later on. But, you know, even we've had people that have spoken from here, and I've spoken to Pastor Spencer about it. And being a business guy, my word is really, really important to me. So if I say to you, I'm going to meet you at a certain time, I better be there. I better have a very good excuse. I need to call you ahead of time or something. And you know, sometimes, you know, there are guest speakers here. So I know one pastor, we got to know each other a little bit because it was also when we do the food thing. And so, hey, what do you do? What do you do? So, you know, you exchange all of that. He goes, oh, man, Henry, I need your services. I will call you next week. I've never heard from the guy. So guess what? Guess what? I don't trust that guy. And I'm not trying to be overly whatever, but your word is everything. You know, they made fun of a politician named Bob Dole when he said, you know, my word is my bond. What else does a man have if he doesn't have his integrity? You know? And there was another pastor that came here. He was wonderful, man. I'd go to his church anytime except for now. As a matter, and so, you know, I'm in the energy business, and Pastor Mike says, oh, you need Henry's services. You talk to Henry. And so the guy, we got together, and he actually sent me his gas electric bills, and we could have saved the guy 22%. It's just the way deregulation. So, you know, I was all excited because, you know, that's part of my ministry is helping people to save money. So I write the guy and I send him the analysis. You're paying X and I'm going to do it for Y, and Z is what you're going to save. I've never heard from that guy ever again. So he put me through a lot of gymnastics, which he didn't have to. I don't mind having somebody say no to me. I don't mind that at all, because the quicker somebody says no, the quicker I get to the yes. And I'm used to no. I'm married. I've been married, you know, for 45 years. So no is just common, you know. But your word is so critical. Just think about it. Your word is everything that you have. You know, a dear friend of mine who was going to a church, and I don't remember everything about it, but his son was going through some things, so he makes an appointment with the pastor for his son, and they were all going to get together. My friend, his wife, and the son show up, no pastor. He had forgotten or didn't write it down about the appointment. Now, I know it's maybe a tiny little thing, but it threw those guys into a little bit of a loop, because that boy has never recovered since then, and not just because of that, but there was something that God wanted to accomplish that was not able to accomplish. So your word, being a man of principle, even when it costs you. I think we've talked about it here before, but my son Josh had an incident, a situation, and he was talking to me about it. And he says, man, what do I do about the situation? These people think that I've taken money or something like that. Dad, I didn't take a penny. I said, it doesn't really matter what they think. You go to them and you tell them, hey, what do you think I owe you? Take your checkbook with you. What do you think I owe you? Because I'm going to write your check right now. And I'm not sure if he did that or not. Cody, can you check that out since you're one of his pastors? No, I'm just kidding.
Right now.
Text them. But it is important. I know I wasn't happy about it, but there was a certain thing that happened even with our own in our own company, and I had to write a guy a check for $1,900 when I didn't do anything wrong. Zip, zero, nada. Did I say nada? Zero, zip. That's what happens anyway. But being a man of principle is much more important than anything else. Making sure that you have credibility with people. Because that's what it's all about, is having credibility with people, isn't it? If you don't have credibility, you could be the best preacher in the world, but if you don't have credibility, you got zilch. And as leaders, as business people, if you don't have credibility, you have zilch. For what it's worth, apartment, if you do have a handout, the last page is a little bit of a homework. I'm not going to charge you, but if you don't do it, just send Pastor Spencer the money. He needs it, I think, more than I do. Not really. Any comments, questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
So what if you have had in the past like a lapse in integrity? You kind of feel that distrust with that relationship with that person. What should you do?
You just keep going forward. You know, you can't do something about somebody else's integrity. You could only worry about yours. Is that what you're asking about? The other person's integrity, more or less, right?
Yeah.
Your own. Well, you can rebuild. I do believe you can rebuild, because I believe that you will have chances to do what is right. And if you do what is right, you know, people will see that you turned around. None of us are perfect. So you can rebuild. I do believe that God is a God of second chances and that you can rebuild. You know, marriages are rebuilt. Business relationships are rebuilt. So yeah, you can. There's no doubt about it. You have to work on it, you know, and it doesn't hurt to apologize and repent. And if you have to even do it more than once. You know, I don't know if you guys ever heard, but there are 7 divine words. Have you ever heard about the 7 divine words? Jay's going like, what's he talking about? So here's the 7 divine words. It works perfectly in marriage. I was wrong and I am sorry. 7 divine words. Funny little story. One of my boys, I think it was either last week or the week before, he and his wife were having a situation, and so he called me. He just had gotten home, and I guess he walked in the front door, and his wife walked out the back door, and you know, she didn't want to have nothing to do with him, so he was texting me. So I said, "Listen, I'm going to give you the 7 divine words." And so I texted him, you know, I was wrong, I'm sorry. So he did it. Within 5 minutes, goes, Dad, it worked like a charm. Gold. I says, awesome. So it does work, you know. It absolutely does work. 7 divine words. I was wrong, and I am sorry. Yeah, I forgot. I'm not really good with my hands. That's why I don't play guitar or any instruments. But I can clap. Anything else, guys? Any questions, comments? So we want to be people of integrity. Do look at that. Do look at that. What I would quote unquote call homework, because it's some good stuff there. Instead of watching, you know, NCIS or As the Stomach Turns, or you know, the Real Housewives of Elmira, something like that. You know,
That's right.
they're not. Yeah, I don't know anything about that. I don't know what they don't do, like a show of the Real Husbands of Elmira or something. You know, I'd be on there. Or the Real Sugar Daddies or something. Well, thank you very, very much for listening.